Have you ever done something so reckless, so unforgivable, that you couldn't even look at yourself in the mirror afterward? I have. And it wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal. Please like and subscribe to this channel. We need your subscription to keep us writing. Thank you for subscribing. Now, let me continue with the story. I never thought I'd end up living with my daughter and her husband, Greg. I raised 3 kids on my own after their father ran off. I'm not some helpless woman who needs handouts. But life has a funny way of humbling you, doesn't it? My health took a turn last year, arthritis in my knees, a bad back, the works, and I had no choice but to move in with them. My daughter Lisa insisted, said it was the least she could do after all I'd done for her. At first, I hated it. I missed my own space, my own routine. But Lisa and Greg had this beautiful house, big, airy, with a guest room that felt like a little sanctuary. And Greg? Well, he was the kind of son-in-law every woman dreams of for her daughter. Handsome, kind, always quick to help. Maybe that's where the trouble started. It was a Tuesday morning, and Lisa had left early for a business trip. She works for some big firm that takes her out of town a lot. I'd planned to take a shower before settling down with my crossword puzzles, but halfway through rinsing my hair, the water cut off. Just like that, freezing cold and then nothing. I stood there for a moment, dripping and cursing under my breath, before wrapping myself in a towel and heading to the guest bathroom down the hall. I didn't think twice about locking the door. Why would I? Lisa wasn't home, and Greg was downstairs in his office. Or so I thought. I had just dropped my towel and was rummaging through the cabinet for a fresh one when the door opened. Oh, shit. Greg froze in the doorway, his eyes going wide as saucers. Greg. I shrieked, scrambling to cover myself. What the hell are you doing? I'm sorry, he stammered, backing up so fast he nearly tripped. I didn't know you were in here. And then he was gone, the door slamming shut behind him. I stood there, my heart pounding, mortified and furious and something else. I couldn't shake the look on his face, the way his eyes lingered just a second too long before he bolted. The tension between us was unbearable after that. At breakfast, he couldn't meet my eyes. I tried to act normal, cracking a joke about how the plumbing in the house was as old as me, but he just muttered something and left the table. I told myself it was just an awkward moment, that it would blow over. But the truth is, it didn't. If anything, things got worse. It started subtly. Greg would glance at me when he thought I wasn't looking, his eyes lingering just a moment too long. At first, I convinced myself I was imagining it. The man was my son-in-law, for God's sake. What kind of sick mind reads into something like that? But then there was the way he started to talk to me, always finding reasons to linger in the kitchen while I cooked, complimenting my hair, my dress, even my laugh. And then there was the night everything changed. Lisa had been gone for 3 days on her work trip. Greg had been kind enough to drive me to my doctor's appointment that afternoon, and afterward, we picked up some groceries. By the time we got back, it was late, and I insisted on cooking us dinner as a thank you. We sat in the living room afterward, sipping wine. I wasn't much of a drinker, but Greg kept pouring, and, well, I didn't want to be rude. You know, he said, leaning back on the couch, I really admire you, Barbara. You've been through so much, but you're still so strong. So beautiful. I laughed, a little too loudly, brushing him off. Oh, stop it, Greg. I'm an old woman. He shook his head, his eyes locking on mine. You don't see yourself the way I do. There it was, that heat, that tension I'd been trying to ignore since the bathroom incident. I should have stood up right then and gone to my room. But I didn't. Instead, I let him slide closer to me, the space between us disappearing. When his hand brushed mine, I didn't pull away. When he leaned in, his lips hovering just inches from mine, I didn't stop him. And when he kissed me, I kissed him back. It was like a floodgate had opened. All the guilt, the shame, it was drowned out by the sheer intensity of it. His hands were everywhere, exploring, caressing, as if he'd been waiting for this moment forever. Barbara, he whispered against my neck, his breath hot and heavy. Tell me to stop, and I will. Just say the word. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled him closer, my body betraying every ounce of common sense I had left. We stumbled up the stairs, our mouths never breaking contact. My bedroom door was barely shut before he had me pinned against it, his hands slipping under my blouse. My skin burned under his touch, and I couldn't help but moan as his lips traveled down my neck, my collarbone, lower still. I should have felt ashamed, standing there, trembling under his touch while my daughter's wedding photo hung on the wall. But in that moment, all I felt was alive. He laid me down on the bed, his movements slow and deliberate, as if he was savoring every second. "You're beautiful," he murmured, his eyes drinking me in as if I were some rare, forbidden treasure. What happened next was a blur of passion and desperation, our bodies tangling in ways I hadn't felt in decades. He was attentive, almost reverent, his hands and lips worshipping every inch of me. And when it was over, we lay there in the dark, his arm draped over me as if this were the most natural thing in the world. But it wasn't natural. It was a betrayal of Lisa, of myself, of everything I believed I stood for. When I woke the next morning, reality came crashing down. Greg was already up, dressed, and in the kitchen, acting as if nothing had happened. But I knew it wasn't a one-time thing. I could see it in his eyes when he handed me my coffee, his fingers brushing mine for just a second too long. Lisa came home that evening, oblivious to the storm brewing under her own roof. I tried to avoid Greg, to put some distance between us, but he wouldn't let me. He found reasons to be alone with me, brushing against me in the hallway, whispering things that made my pulse race. And then, late one night, when Lisa was fast asleep, he knocked on my door. "Greg," I whispered, opening it just a crack. "You can't be here. I can't stop thinking about you," he said, his voice low and urgent. "I know this is wrong, but I don't care. I need you." And just like that, I let him in. It became a pattern, sneaking around, stolen moments when Lisa wasn't looking. Every time, I told myself it would be the last. And every time, I found myself back in his arms, powerless to resist. I don't know how it will end. Maybe Lisa will find out, and it will destroy everything. Maybe Greg will come to his senses and call it off. Or maybe, I shudder to think, we'll get caught. But for now, I'm living in this dangerous, intoxicating fantasy, knowing it can't last but unable to let it go. Please like and subscribe to this channel for more stories like this. Thanks for watching.